There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died. Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. He starred on the most recent tour of Cats. At first, he was a swing, and then he was Pouncival, and then he was a swing, and then he was Mungojerrie. And honestly, I'm just excited to hear about all of them. So welcome, Justin Geiss, and thank you for joining me.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So I always love kind of hearing, I mean, you've covered so many cats, so I've got a billion questions for you about all of them, but I love hearing about your kind of introduction to the show. How familiar were you with it before you got cast as a cat?
So I knew it by heart.
So you're super fan before getting in. Okay.
Yeah. It was like one of those things because I'm mostly a dancer. And I actually started out in ballet before I ever did musical theater, just like strict ballet training for like 12 years. And the way that I got into dancing was through cats because I saw how hard they were dancing and like how impressive it was that they could like have that stamina. And I was like, that one, I want to do that one. And I wanted to be the white cat so badly as a kid. It was all I wanted to be Victoria. It was just like the dream. So I was obsessed with that show and then went to see like a ballet production. And then that was it. I was like, dancing, this is what I'm doing for my whole life.
So did you become obsessed with the VHS?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
VHS.
So 1998 VHS, you're watching it over and over. How old were you about when you became obsessed with it?
I would say it was like right around the time when like I was coherent enough to like speak. Was like right when my mom would play the soundtrack for me and then show me the movie. So like then by the time I was like 4, I had a Walkman with the CD in it, and that was all I did was I would walk around with my headphones on and sing it at full blast.
Wow. So 4 to 5-ish, you're singing Cats all day. And this is your mom. It sounds like it's your mom's fault who played it for you.
Fully her fault. Oh yeah, like 110%. She loves musical theater. She loves performance. She like majored in like vocal performance and stuff when she was in college and all that stuff. And she loved it. And then she bestowed that love upon me as well through the form of Cats.
That's amazing. So when was the first time you saw it live then? If you're obsessed at that age, I mean, I guess, did it come through town? Were you able to when were you able to go see it?
So the first time I ever saw it live was actually the revival on Broadway. I hadn't seen it before.
That's well after, it sounds like.
Yeah. So I was in love with the show. I would watch the VHS probably like once a year. If not like 2 to 3 times a year. I would just like sit down and be like, all right, annual Cats time, like around like Christmas, because Christmas was always a time when, you know, I'm doing Nutcracker all the time, forever and ever. And I'm doing 80 shows of it. And I just need to watch something that like fuels my soul so that I don't I can't hear Nutcracker anymore. And I would always watch Cats around like that sort of time to sort of like get me in love with dancing again. But the first time I saw it like live was the revival, and the overture started playing and I just started sobbing. And, you know, they like run through the audience with the flashing eyes.
Not prepared for that.
So they run through the audience and they flash at me and I'm crying. And the cat just grabbed my hand and then ran away. Just as like a little like, I can tell you're so excited to be here. Like, get ready. It's really cool.
Do you know who it was? Do you remember?
I think it was Rumpelteazer, but it could have been Jelly. I just saw like a lot of yellow. So it could have been like Jelly Lorem or maybe even like Demeter. But I was up in the mezzanine, so I think it was Rump because I think she ran through the mezzanine.
It's like a little bit of revival. A little bit of foreshadowing for you.
Yeah, honestly, truly, yeah.
Like, I'm going to grab your hand and then we're going to be doing this number for a long time. I love it. So you were obsessed. You got to see it. What like then what? Tell me about like the casting process, because that's got to be almost a lot of pressure with how much you kind of love the show, being in that whole process.
Yeah, so I was also non-union when I auditioned. So like I know you talked to my boyfriend Dan about like his audition process, I'm sure, and he was like, I went in twice and then I got cast. Like that was great. I had like 2 weeks of going in like almost every day. And every single time I went in, I was like, I can't wait to get cut, but I'm so excited to be here and just be taking like a free class. I just looked
Mm-hmm.
at it as taking like a free class where I got to be a cat. Like, that's so cool. It's free. Why would I not go?
Yeah.
And then every single time I never got cut and I messed up like all the time. There was my first time singing in front of Andy Blankenbuehler. For those of you that don't know, he choreographed the revival. I had sides for a dressing of cats, and they were like, sing either the tenor line or the baritone line. And the tenor line was more impressive, but I was really stressed about it. So I sang the baritone line. And for some reason, my brain put it an octave lower. So instead of being like here, I was like way down here. And I start singing, and the whole table of people is just looking at each other like, what is this kid doing? And then Andy goes, Justin, I just don't think that's right. And I was like, mortified. I said, what's the first note? And then the pianist plunked it out. And I was so embarrassed that I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Can I just, and then I walked out of the room and I walked back in and I said, hi, my name's Justin. How are you guys doing today? And everybody laughed. And at that moment, I was like, either I'm getting cast or I'm getting cut. And there's no going back because I just messed up so bad. Like either they love me and my personality enough that they want me to continue, or that's it.
Wow. What a story. And that wasn't it, as you weren't cut. So you get cast as a swing, and you covered, tell me who you covered, because there was a pretty good list.
Ooh, I covered Pouncival, I covered Tumble Brutus, Alonzo, Coricopat, Mistopheles, Skimbleshanks, Mungojerrie, Tantamile, just in case I ever had to. They said, just like watch her in case. And then I also covered the booth. So I did
everybody, basically. Basically every dancer that you could.
Yeah, it's almost easier to be like, I didn't cover Monkey Strap and Tugger.
And tell me about what it's like learning all of those tracks, especially as a dancer. I mean, they're all different dance numbers. Everyone's in a different spot at all times, and it's a very intensive show. Like it's incredibly. The athleticism it takes to do that throughout an entire show, let alone knowing like 7 different tracks.
It was definitely something that took some getting used to. I had never swung a show before either, so I didn't know like really a process that like worked for me, and I found it like luckily for me very quickly into the rehearsal process. I know some people didn't find it till later, so at the first part of the rehearsal process they struggled a little. I do well taking physical notes. So I still have it. It's a huge binder. It's probably like 2 or 3 inches thick. That's like full of drawn out like pictures of the set, where everybody goes, not just my cats, where everybody goes. And then I have everything color coded. And then I wrote out where, like what steps everybody was doing on what leg, when they were doing it, with what timing on what count. And I had that put in folders that was also color coded. And then at the back of the book, I had what I called my cheat sheets, which were usually about 4 pages long. And the cheat sheets just had like, this is a canon that everybody participates in. You're on count 4.
Wow.
So that if I had to go on in 2 seconds, because sometimes like I would literally go on mid-show, and back before I knew all the tracks really well, I would have to like check my notes. And so if I needed to check really quickly, like oh God, what canon am I on? What count do I do? I had them like labeled, but I found that like a lot of color coding was very helpful for me. And so now all of my cats have colors associated with them. And when I think of the show, like I picture them all in like highlight colors, which is
In their color. I love it. So did you do the same type of thing for the actual story or the backstory of cats, or was this purely dance numbers?
so for my binder was mostly for dance numbers and makeup. The makeup plots were also done fully color coded and written out in the back. And then for the plot, that was more of me sort of feeling out, okay, so tonight I'm on as Alonzo. I know he's older. I know he's a little bit more like prissy. He's a little bit more like subdued than, say, when I go on for like a kitten. So that was more of like, I'm letting myself have fun in the show and like really feel that versus like, I have to get the step right or I'm going to bump into so and so and it's going to be an issue.
So yeah, okay. So yeah, that makes more sense. So you just kind of try to get the basic, like, here's the rough idea of that particular cat, but it wasn't necessarily like, okay, I got to be super mindful of this or that, because as a swing, you're just trying to make sure you're keeping the show moving a little bit.
Yeah, I was always trying to keep the show moving. Every cat, I'm sure you've been told this a bunch and people already know, but every cat has 3 words that are associated with them. And anytime I went on, I would read those 3 words like over and over and over and over. So that when I went on stage, like, yeah, I'm in the right place, but I also have to portray these 3 words the best that I possibly can. Because
Mhm.
otherwise, you're not performing, then you're just doing
They're just
steps.
dancing. Yeah.
You're just doing whatever. But I think that's what was really fun about swinging was like I got to be Alonzo, who maybe wasn't as much of a fan of a certain cat. So I got to like sort of give the cold shoulder to somebody for a show. And then like next, the next show I would be a kitten. And then I would be like, okay, cool. I love everyone. I'm
Yeah.
just excited to be here.
That's kind of fun. What were Pouncival's 3 words? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I think one of them was like electric or like energetic because I remember that was a really big thing was him being like, at least for me, being the youngest cat and also the youngest cast member on the tour. Pouncival was like my favorite track to go on for all the time because it felt very like natural to just be like full of this like energy of like, okay, it's time to go. I'm at the ball. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's do the thing. I'm ready to go.
What was the rest of, like, did you ever, since you got to be Pouncival, like not as a swing,
Mhm.
did you come up with a backstory for Pouncival? Like, that's a cat I don't know as much about. And so I'm trying to figure a little bit, like, I'm hoping you can educate me on a little bit more about what I need to know about Pouncival.
Yeah. So the way that our original Pouncival played it was a little bit different from me. And I think that's what makes that cat really special because there is room for you to sort of play it in different ways. The main thing that our tour decided was that Jelly Lorem is our mom and Old Dude is our dad. But we are very, very young. Like we are like this is our first Jellicle ball that we've ever been to. So we
And that
haven't
includes,
gotten
who does that include? You as Pouncival, and which other kittens have Old Dude and Joey Lorem?
I think it was Tumble Brutus too was also
Okay.
there, and it would have been Carbuckety, but we didn't have a Carbuckety in our
Got it.
production.
Okay.
Um, but so Pouncival is just very excited to be there. He doesn't know anything's wrong. So like all the Macavity scares are so scary and real because like what could go wrong? It's the Jellicle ball that I've only heard perfect things about. So anytime I was, there you're prompted to be like, this is a scary point. Like I would genuinely freak out. Like I would send myself spiraling because I'd be like, oh my God, what's happening? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like all the time. Because that's kind of how he felt. I always had a very strong connection, not just because we were best friends on tour, but to Monkeystrap, the character, Pouncival really looked up to him as like in any version on the tour. Pouncival really looked up to him as like a leader, someone that he could follow and sort of take like a mentor. Sort of views Monk as like a mentor, if that makes sense.
So in your eyes, do you see Pouncival as like the third in line after Monkeystrap?
Potentially. He's definitely in line. I think there are other cats that are older than him that might serve better, like Tumble. Tumble might serve a little bit better. In other productions, Carbuckety is definitely older and would be more in line. But Pouncival is definitely being groomed to sort of be that leader, but he's unaware. He's blissfully unaware.
Okay.
He's just such a baby.
I like it. So he's obviously just happy to be there, enjoying the show. What is Pouncival's reaction, in the scary moment of Grizabella coming back?
He doesn't know. He doesn't know her. He's heard nothing about her except that she's old and gross. So, he's sort of being told like all these different things. Like some of the younger kittens are saying like, oh, she's like diseased, but like you can mess with her. Like go over and like Mungojerrie is like, go over and like scratch her. Go over and like scare her. Like that's totally fine. But then like these people that you look up to are saying like, don't go near her, don't touch her. But you don't really know who she is. By the time she was gone and left, you weren't even born.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who she is, so I'm kind of curious. Pouncival's a little curious as to like who Grizabella is, but doesn't really have any sort of negative or positive feeling. More just a general curiosity of like, what are you?
And so no real take from your mom and dad being able to kind of, who definitely know her.
Yeah, that progresses as the show does. So like her first entrance, I'm a little bit more curious because I'm like, oh, who are you? I don't know who you are. Let me try to go say hello. Oh no. Oh, I shouldn't. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Because then Jelly is very like, don't touch her. Do not go near her. Monkeystrap is like, nobody go near her. This wicked woman. So then I think Pouncival gets kind of scared because why am I not allowed to go near her? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
No one's explaining what happened. Everybody's just like, don't touch her, which becomes very scary. So I think like during the ball then when she comes up, I was always very scared of her because it's like, now I don't know who you are. I've never seen you before. No one's ever spoken your name to me, really, ever. And now I'm being told that I can't go near you. These are all bad things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, completely. And I think that's, it's kind of interesting every time I talk to somebody who's covered, especially some of the cats that I haven't really done as much detailed research on, like the perspective from that, like the show from that lens.
Mm-hmm.
I want to pivot to now Mungojerrie's perspective because it's very different. It's first of all, it is an incredible dance feat. Like that was what I was mesmerized when I saw, because I also saw the revival first. And I just remember seeing that dance number, that very catchy song stuck in my head for days after, but also just saying, wow, these two, like it was that and the White Cat. Like those are the dance numbers as a non-dancer, non-singer, was just like, wow, that was fun to watch. That was an experience to watch as someone who could never even remotely move and do any of those things.
Yeah.
So, what were Mungo's 3 words? Do you remember his, or at least one of his?
One of them was like cheeky, or it was something to the extent of like cheeky or like sly, along those lines. Like he's never actively doing anything bad. And if he is, he's not. Why would he do something bad? He's always like gaslighting people. Like, of course I wouldn't do that. He's a very sly, intelligent cat who portrays himself in a light of, I'm just like hanging out and doing whatever. But he's smarter than that. And everybody knows that he's more intelligent than that. So that's sort of my like lens of him.
And what's doing that perspective like, especially after, you just talked a lot about Pouncival, which is very curious and scared, and now it's like, I know exactly what's going on. I'm probably causing half of it. Like, what is that pivot like for you as an actor?
It was really fun. Like my favorite weeks on tour, they were exhausting, but like my favorite weeks on tour were going like, okay, well, today I'm Pouncival, tomorrow I'm doing Alonzo, third day I got 2 Misto shows, and then fourth day I'm doing Mungojerrie into a split track. Like those were my favorite weeks because I got to experience so many different sides of the show, like that I would never have the pleasure of doing if I had just played one cat. But I really loved going specifically from a kitten to Mungojerrie. And the reason was because Mungojerrie is like a teenager. So he's not a kitten. He's not like a little kid. He's been to the Jellicle ball before. He knows what's up. But he's not old enough yet to sort of like have a really good conscience of like what he's doing. So he's just messing with anyone and everyone. So like anytime they're like, who do you think should go up there? He's like, me, obviously. Like, no, it's not going to be you, dude. And he knows that, but just putting his hat in the ring because he can. Why wouldn't I do this? I deserve it. Or like going up to the kittens and being like, hey, you should definitely go scratch Grisabella. You should go do that. It's going to be good for you, I promise. So it was kind of fun going from like a really curious, tiny, like newcomer to this like very like egotistical, borderline, like super narcissistic cat who just wants to ruin the world. He just wants to watch it burn. It was really fun.
It did feel like, and I don't remember if does Mungo wear a collar, or is
He
that
does
Rumple?
have a collar.
It kind of feels like he's the like teenage rich kid, like from a family that can afford to do, like he can kind of do what he wants. He doesn't need to steal, but he's going to steal. He's going to try to push everyone's buttons, and then he kind of gets this like very showy dance number with his with his girlfriend, that they have fun. And so I definitely got that vibe, which is, it's fun to hear that that's exactly like the way that it's written, which also shows just how good of performers everyone is to like also kind of to portray that. So where does he fit in this like whole, he's not, he tries to take a spot, like he tries to take a shot at like, hey, I'm up for the running, but he's clearly not. Is he just trying to mess with everybody, or is he truly trying to be the Jellicle choice?
I think in the back of his mind, he really does want to be the Jellicle choice, but it's more like, for any Harry Potter fans out there, it's like the scene in Goblet of Fire when Fred and George try to throw their names into the Goblet of Fire just to put their names in the Goblet of Fire. Like they don't want to participate in the tournament. They just want to stir the pot.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. He's like
very Weasley twins-ish.
Yeah, that's kind of, they were a huge inspiration of like, this is how I should act. Just a troublemaker, a fool. And the orange still matches.
Yeah.
Very like a ginger cat. It worked out pretty well. But I think it's more along those lines. And he's very clearly the ringleader. And Rumpelteaser's just like along for the ride. She doesn't really know what's happening. So it's him prompting it, being like, we are throwing our names in the ring because look at us. And she's like, yeah, sure, I guess. That sounds like fun.
What family tree did your cast play for Mungojerrie? Like, who are his parents? Do we know? Did you ever talk through that?
In my head, Mungo's parents are not with us anymore.
Okay.
I liked to play it sort of as like his parents were kind of gone already. And then Jenny would take him in. So Jenny was sort of like an adoptive parent that he didn't really ask for. He's like that teen that's like acting out because his parents died.
Interesting. So, okay. I don't think that has a rumor that I have seen, which I like. I always like anytime we can create new rumors. So he's an adopted by Jenny, and that's part of maybe the trauma of what causes some of the outbursts. Okay, I'm a fan. As someone who's seen so many different lenses of this show, I mean, you've got all of your colors that you've prepped. How would you explain the plot to somebody? Like to someone who hasn't seen it, they're going to go see it for the first time. They just loosely know it's cats. Basically me before I went to see it the first time. Like what would be here's what you're going to go see?
So I would probably explain it in the most blunt way possible, which is it's kind of just a show of introductions. So it's a show where there is this magical night once a year where all these cats that are very special and for some reason are a little humanoid all gather in a junkyard, and they decide who in the cult is going to become this choice, this magical person that gets to enter this special place. And then you just meet everybody. So every song, you're meeting someone new, you're discovering something new, and along the way, we are just letting you in on it. Like, you're not supposed to be there. So as a human, you should, if you ever feel uncomfortable, you should. Yeah. You're not supposed to be there. It's just for the cats. We're just letting you live in it with us. And then as the plot progresses, you'll see who they decide to pick, and the tribe picks instead of the leader in this one instance.
Okay. I like that. It's very kind of simplistic of like, don't worry, don't overthink it. You're just going to get introduced to everybody. Just be happy you're there. And then we'll kind of give you a little bit on why you're getting chosen, like why the person gets chosen.
Because I feel like that part of the plot is very clear to people of like, yeah, okay, so they all chose Grisabella because she's this trodden cat that needs it. Mm-hmm. You know, they're like giving back to the community or whatever by doing this. And it shows that like, if you have heart, you can achieve things, whatever, that good, happy plot. Whereas like the other subplots of like Mungojerrie's parents being dead, like the audience doesn't necessarily know that or need to know that in order to enjoy the show. And I always add in, I'm like, if you're a fan of dance or you're a fan of just like pushing the human body to its limit and you love like watching people do that, this is the show for you.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because that is where I struggled with it. Not in that sense, but in the sense of like, I really like a clean story, a plot. And I appreciated like all of the other pieces you just mentioned. I was like, oh, that was incredible to watch. Like that is peak athleticism with people in the top of their field, mm-hmm. Like that is in a feat to see. But I was also sitting here, and this podcast exists mostly as a joke, but it did start from no, I don't think that this introductions and choice wasn't my favorite way of finishing this. And I don't think I really even fully understood most of what I watched. I was like, yeah, I'm at a cult tribe where I thought they were going to like start drinking juice at the end and they were all going to die. And then I was like, oh no, then it felt very contest-ish. Like each person's going to do their number to like make their case, which I feel mm-hmm. like is probably more accurate. And then I was like, well, there's a bunch of these that probably didn't make a case at all. There's some random kidnapping scene in the middle. The judge is forced to stay on stage during the intermission, which really threw me off. And then we pick at the end with the song that I knew, like the one song I knew very well. And so it is that like kind of, okay, if you're going to go to enjoy the dance numbers and like the true like nuance of it and the set design and all the other stuff, like it is incredible. But if you are someone who likes to watch an introduction, a conflict and a resolution, a climax and a conclusion, it's not the show for you.
It is 100% not the show for you. There's a lot that's in there that's like hard to grasp, like why it's happening. But like as a performer, or if you've seen it 80 times, you're like, yeah, obviously he's getting kidnapped by Macavity. But it's like, that's not clear to literally anyone else.
For sure. And I think that's what I've enjoyed about these recordings is I would have never thought about Pouncival's parents. I would have never thought that Mungo's parents are dead. Like I would have never thought that. But now if I watch the 1998 movie again, I have a little bit more depth to say, oh, interesting. I could see that. And I think that that's a part of this show that like I wish was a little cleaned up. I wish there was a little bit more. I wish I was given a little bit more of the backstory, and it didn't take me 80 times seeing it to be able to piece all together, or just talking to every single cast member I can to have them tell me how they played it. But I think that that's a piece that I would have, for me, not for like, I'm not trying to tell Andy and Andrew Lloyd Webber and everyone else on like how to change a show, but for me as a viewer, that's something I would have appreciated more. But also, you know, we're almost at 40 years, so I shouldn't be telling a show that's got that success. I'm trying to influence the future of the show.
Yeah.
But I do think that that's an area where if I'm telling me to go see it, I'm giving a little bit more depth. I'm like, all right, look, there's going to be this thing. They're going to put on, there's a tap number here. There's going to be this whole piece that's going to be completely unexplained, but really here's kind of why it exists. Because everything does have, the more I'm seeing it, the more I'm like, oh, there's like that cat's turning for a reason. That cat's not doing this for a reason. There's some of those things that are really underlying in there that's just not so cut and dry clear until you really analyze it. Or you're one of those super fans that has been able to go see it 80 plus times and be able to say, okay, I'm going to watch just this cat today and figure out what their story is.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is like every tour is different and every production is completely different. So like even if you've seen like US tour number 7 or whatever, when you go see US tour number 8, all of those interactions are going to be different because it's a different clan, it's a different tribe. And
for sure, my goal is by all the stuff I've made up. And I've talked to enough people that have done the show now, and I've told them a lot of my theories. My goal is that on tour, I think we're on 7, or if it does, I think this is the 7th US tour will be what's happening. And I'm not sure when or whenever it goes back out. I want enough people to have heard this, or me have talked to enough of the right people that it's like, oh, we're going to play it that way. We're going to play one of the rumors that I totally made up, because I think everything I've made up has some, it makes sense. And there's been a lot of piecing these things together. That's my goal. I'm just trying to influence the future of the show. Maybe one or two tweak here or there, which will never actually make any difference, because in the end of the day, it's like, it's still going to be the exact same show. I'm never going to get the ending to change. But if I can get, hey, these two are going to pretend that they're actually together, or that this is a love triangle, or this type of thing here, and that's where some of the animosity comes from, I will have considered this podcast a success.
I love that. I think that's so cool.
That's it. That was not my goal when I started this. I just wanted to understand what I watched. And here I am 50 plus episodes later, now understanding what I've watched and saying, okay, there's some plot holes here and we got to fix them.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's the thing too, is like in rehearsals, they always say like, yeah, we know that there's like a plot hole here, but also like that's your job as an actor, is to then fill that hole and make it make sense for you. But that means that every time you do it, that plot hole is going to be, it's going to have a different plug every single time.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. Let's do, actually, before we do rapid fire, you mentioned that you used to watch the 1998 movie every Christmas season or every holiday season. Did you go see the holiday revival movie that they decided to launch? And what were your thoughts on it?
Oh boy, did I. I have seen that movie 3 times now. And I personally love it for all the wrong reasons.
I think that's the only way people love it right now.
I think it's kind of like The Room, in that it is so blissfully unaware that it's not great. It doesn't know. It's living so much in the truth of what it's trying to produce that it has no idea that people are making fun of it.
It has, I don't know what to make of it anymore, because when I saw it originally, I was like, there are parts I enjoyed. There are parts I thought were just terrible decisions. And then it just became the butt end of a joke that never is ending. But also Cats in general has always been kind of that way. It's always been a very easy punchline for theater, like for any time you need a theater joke, because it is so strange at times.
Oh, 100%.
But as I've like looked back on it now and everyone's distanced themselves from it and everyone's like kind of refusing to talk about it, I just wonder how it got to that point. Like, how did they get to the point of where, from what I read the day before, it wasn't even finished? And they had, like, there were just some very questionable decisions. But I think that I do think there's another life for it where it becomes exactly that. It's a little Rocky Horror Picture.
I was literally just about to say it's going to become like Rocky Horror, and they're going to have like certain parts in the movie, throw popcorn at the screen.
Yeah.
It's going to have like a whole, like, because you know how you can buy like the Rocky Horror kits where it has like all the stuff that you need to go see the movie. It's going to be like that. Someone's going to make like a whole thing that has to happen at some point in the film. Like, I think it's hilarious. I really enjoyed watching it all 3 times because I think it's silly.
I do like that. I think what you have seen it though as, you know, from every angle, but you had seen it originally in a stage production. And I think that that's where it missed, is that I think a lot of people who didn't get the fortune of seeing it on stage or even the 1998 movie, if that's their introduction to it, are going to be a little confused.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with it was that Cats is the biggest part about Cats is dancing, right? Like if you take away the fact that the vocals are hard and that there are cats that like only are there to kind of sing and progress the like small plot that there is forward, it's mostly like a dancing show. And all of the dancing was shot horribly. So it doesn't help that like something that could have been a spectacular feat of dancing, even if it wasn't that great of a film itself, didn't even make that cut because you can't see what anybody's doing.
Yeah, and I mean, what a talented group of dancers that they had to do it, that you just couldn't see do it. And actually, that was when I originally was seeing, I was like, wow, this is a really incredible set of people. I was like, if nothing else, like this should be fun to watch them do some of these dance numbers or whatever, you know, was going to be coming from it. But it was not quite that, or it was, but it was a little nauseating version of it. Let's move on, because I think that everyone doesn't want to talk about the new movie. Let's do a little bit of rapid fire. So you played so many of the cats, but what's either somebody that if you were going on one more time, who you'd want to go on as, or just if you could go play anybody in the show, who would you want to play? And I'm going to ask it 2 ways. Who would the 5-year-old you answer, and what would today you answer?
Oh man, 5-year-old me wants to be Victoria.
Still Victoria, okay.
Still Victoria, like hands down. I want to be Demeter.
Demeter?
Wholeheartedly. Favorite cat in the entire show. Best number, arguably. I love that cat.
That is my favorite number now. The more I've listened to it, the recording, the more I've kind of watched it, it's definitely the one that gets stuck in my head most frequently.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's a great answer. Not the answer I've heard all the time, so I kind of like that. Who is your favorite and least favorite cat?
I think my favorite cat would probably be Demeter. I love Demeter so much. So very, very, very much. I don't really like old dude at all.
Don't like old dude. Don't like dad.
I don't like the makeup plot or the costume or frankly like a lot of the like solo parts of it. And that's not to knock anybody. Like everybody that's done it is super talented. I'm not a fan.
Love it. So you're never getting picked for the Heaviside Layer.
Nope, not me.
Never the choice. What about favorite song?
Macavity.
Macavity. So yeah, I mean, you're staying right in there in the wheelhouse. I love it. Which cat do you think would be thriving in 2021?
Probably Victoria.
Victoria. Interesting.
I
Why?
think I think she'd be thriving in 2021 because she was young enough that she wouldn't be like jaded and scarred yet in 2020. Like through the pandemic, she's such a bright, like positive light. She would have been like everybody's like, "No, you got this. We're going to survive." And then like in 2021, she'd be that girl that's like, I am vaccinated and I'm setting up like a whole like picnic for everybody that's been vaccinated as like a celebration. Like I feel like she's that girl.
I kind of think she's a TikTok influencer. She's like coming up with dances. She took
Yes.
all of quarantine to figure out how to, to learn how to do all of those, and it now has like 2 million followers.
110% that one. That is exactly
I
where
like
she
it.
would be.
My answer is that you could sell me on that one. That might change my mind. I've always answered this as Bustifer. I feel like a kind of fat, just eat, oblivious to life, rich cat would probably be doing all right in 2021. But I like the idea of a TikTok influencer.
For sure. She'd be thriving on TikTok.
So now the question I have based this entire show around, but do you agree that Grisabella should have been the Jellicle choice? And if not, who should have been? And either way, I want you to defend your choice.
I don't think it should have been Grisabella.
And so who is your choice?
So I've gone back and forth on this, but I think the cat that I personally think deserves it the most is actually Macavity.
Macavity. I don't think anybody's made a Macavity argument.
I feel like it's like if we're giving people second chances, right? Macavity made poor choices in his life, like consecutive poor choices that led him to basically become a mob boss. Like, let's be real. He's like a mob boss.
For sure.
And I feel like given a second chance, knowing what he's done and how it's affected people, given that second chance could potentially change. Like if there's no Macavity in the show, there's no fear. There's just happiness and bliss. And there's just this Jellicle ball where everybody's excited to be there. The only reason that people are scared is because of this like crazy person. And if given a second chance, maybe he won't do that again, knowing how badly it affected the tribe.
I like that. So your argument is that if we're going to choose redemption, which is what Old Dude does, he chooses a story of redemption. You're saying choose the one who's still in the tribe, who also is causing more problems and fear, and not the person who just kind of magically showed back up at the end.
Yeah, we can accept Grisabella back in. There's no word of like we can't not accept her back in, but that doesn't mean she deserves to go up there.
Yeah, right away.
There's just like, oh yeah, you haven't been around the whole time. Let's send you up on this magical journey that we all like beg and plead for. Like, I don't think that's fair. I think also like maybe showing Macavity a bit of kindness might benefit that cat quite a lot, because maybe that's why he became where he's at, is because he didn't get shown that same sort of kindness and love and affection. So by showing that to him in the same way that we do with Grisabella, it could sort of change the Jellicle history. I don't know.
I'm a fan. So you're saying, Old Dude, you had the right idea. You just picked the wrong cat. Like the thought process was right, but you just made the wrong decision in the end. Who was your other choice? Now I'm curious because you said you went back and forth between two.
So I went back and forth because I love my girl Demeter, and I just was trying to find an argument for Demeter to go up there based on like everything that she's been through. I think that it would be a great choice as well, just because this poor cat has really just seen every dark side of every alleyway that has ever existed and has never been shown like a lick of kindness except by Monkey Strap. Like even the other cats, we don't really interact with Demeter, like ever. Like no one goes near her at all, because she joined this tribe, even though it was like unwillingly. She didn't want to. So it's like I was really trying to find an argument that wasn't like me just trying to pump up my girl.
She's got a very dark storyline.
She really does. Like, it's so unfortunate. And I was like, it would be great in the same way that like you show affection to Grisabella and then she gets sent up. Like, I think Demeter deserves a little bit of affection. But then I was like, but we can give her that without giving her.
Yeah, without murdering her.
Without murdering her, snapping her neck
reward.
and throwing her off the back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I do. It is, if you think about, like, depends on worth, like who's worthy. It depends on your criteria. And she's kind of only the criteria if you choose like the who's been through it all, like who's been through a lot. But that's kind of the same argument for Grisabella. Is because you kind of assume Grisabella had a fairly Demeter-ish storyline, except for it was so bad because she's older, she left and is now coming back being like, please, it's my time. So I feel like it's hard to make her argument and diminish Grisabella's argument.
Exactly.
Whereas I do kind of like the Macavity, because you could say he didn't leave. He stayed with us, even though he caused all kinds of problems. But he's been here the whole time causing issues and could use the same redemption.
For sure.
That is fun. I love anytime someone makes a different argument, because it just shows that, one, that I'm not crazy, that I don't think Grisabella is the wrong cat to die. But it's just also fun to hear different like angles of how people approach it, because there's just so many, which is cool. It's a cool part of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about Whispers from Below.
Oh, so that is my podcast that I started right after tour was finished. It is a horror podcast, a little bit different from, I think, probably what people expect of me if they know me from Cats. But every week it goes up on Mondays, and I talk about scary things, whether it's like a bad scary movie that I saw and I'm giving play-by-plays and being like, she wore this outfit and she looked awful, she deserved to be murdered in that outfit. Or I'm talking about like a cold case or an anime that I saw that was really scary. I have episodes on like Death Note and stuff like that. Anybody who's like a big anime fan knows what I'm putting down. But yeah, I just like talk about scary stuff every week, and it's fun. It's more of a like me talking to the void, kind of like I am now, of just like rambling on things. So if you enjoy hearing me ramble, that is definitely the show for you.
Are you going to be doing a Scary Cats episode?
I've thought about it. I had this idea where I was going to do an episode of like the things that you didn't know about cats and all the like actual dark stuff that we got told about like Demeter and Macavity and Grisabella and even like Bomb and like all the stuff that they dealt with to get to the point, or the fact that like it's literally a cult and then using it as an example to like showcase other cults. I've really thought about it. I just have to like put it together, but it's definitely in the works.
I've got notes for you. I've got a lot of notes for you, because I don't think this is a children's show, which I love that we started with you as a 4 and 5-year-old being obsessed. Because I do think there's a lot, as I researched, that I was like, whoa, I did never piece this together when I saw it. And also, wow, there are some dark pieces to this. So I'm sure your notes are better coming, because you have them color coordinated in from Andy Blankenbuehler, and I'm just reading the fan Wikipedia page and fan fiction of of Cats. But there's a lot there. I think you got an angle, especially if you take the newly found theory that I've heard now a few episodes later of, is old Deuteronomy just a serial killer? Which
he is.
Which is my new favorite theory I've heard from someone from your cast.
Yeah, no, our cast was obsessed with this idea that he was just a serial killer. And we used to make jokes that like, because in our production, the tire like lifts up and it's like this huge magical moment. And then Grisabella like flies away. And we were saying like, instead of that, he just like snaps her neck and just throws her off the back. Just like, and she made it. How great. All right. Drink your Kool-Aid, kiddies.
Who's up
like,
next?
Let's go. Very like Jim Jones vibes from
I think
old
you've got,
food.
You could go with the dark, with the cults, you could go with serial killers. You got a lot of ways to do a Cats episode.
I think so. I think there's a lot of angles for that.
So how can we find that podcast, and how else can we stay in touch with you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find that podcast on Spotify. It's on like Google Podcasts and like all the places where you find every other podcast. You can find Whispers from Below. You can keep in touch with that podcast. You can either go to the website, which is just whispersfrombelow.com, or you can find the Instagram. It's the same thing, Whispers from Below. It's not taken, luckily. So there's no underscores or capitals or anything like sneaking in there. And if you want to keep in touch with me and my life, it's literally just like my dog and me wearing makeup. That's pretty much my Instagram. It's JUTIN_Geiss, like the animal, because my nickname for a while was Justin Geiss when I was in Houston Ballet like training. So that's what it is.
Stick with it. I love it. You never changed it from the initial social media blitz. Well, thank you so much for coming on, for making a new argument for a different cat to die, which is always fun, and for just enlightening me on a few other cats I didn't know as much about.
Yes, of course. Anytime. I'll enlighten you on many more cats. I did them all. So.
And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.